Primera queries que kiri. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, that was a pretty low bar. Thank you for coming on a Saturday morning on a lovely day like this. It's really an honor to be here. I was trying to make it last year, but a few things came up at the last minute, so I couldn't make it. But I just wanted to, thank you for being here. So the entrepreneurial narrative is, I would characterize it really as a pursuit. It's born out of passion, but filled with failure, something I'm going to talk about later this afternoon if you're around for that. And that's why it's a relentless pursuit. And I just had a few things I wanted to share with you, two in particular. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. And then we'll talk about products, one of the things I love, and what I think is the most important role for the entrepreneur. My highly biased view. Really quick background. I, like many of you, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Vietnam, came to the US when I was a little kid, went to school at MIT, never graduated, started my first company in natural language processing, sold it to an internet company back in the day. Tried to go back to school, dropped out again, started my second company, a medical device business that did pretty well, built it to about nearly 100 million in revenue, and we sold the last technology to a big drug company. And then I met John Sculley, former CEO of Apple and Pepsi, became friends, and then we started a company together about 4.5 years ago, and then last year we sold it to Fossil Group. So this is the company that, the most recent company. Here's my buddy from college, Sridhar Iyengar. We've been friends and roommates in college. Although he actually finished and got his degrees and whatnot. John, kind of really a fatherly mentor to the two of us, the adult supervision. And we started the company 4.5 years ago. And over the course of these few years, we launched a number of wearable technology products. Which, back in, 10 years ago would be unheard of. It'd be very strange, just the notion of wearing technology. But really in the last 5 years, it's kind of exploded onto the scene. Most recently, like I said, we were acquired by Fossil, and now we're launching over 100 different products over the course of this and next year. Our big product insight was around design and simplicity and fashion. So design, fashion, simplicity. And that's what we focused everything on. No talk of megabytes and gigabits and terahertz, whatever. Just, is it beautiful? Will it fit with what you wear? And by the way, it does a bunch of cool stuff. So our design language really was around elegance and beauty, but also lots of functionality packed into these devices. So this is what we made, the latest product called the Misfit Ray. I'm wearing one right now. And the big thing we're known for also is around no charging. So it lasts for 6 months at a time instead of having to charge it. So we had a lot of fun building this business, and then quite unexpectedly, about a year ago, a big watch company called Fossil Group came along, and it really was a match made in heaven, because we were this tech company in Silicon Valley that thought we were a fashion company. We liked fashion. We're big wannabes. Always trying to partner with fashion companies, Victoria's Secret, Swarovski. We really partnered with those folks to try to build our brand quickly. And then when we got to Fossil Group, we thought, okay, now this is a real fashion company with real brands, 18 different brands, including the Fossil brand, the iconic American vintage brand, as well as a number of the world's, some of the coolest brands in the fashion world, Michael Kors, Armani. We just added Kate Spade this year. And so we make watches for all of these companies, 30 million watches a year. We're, I think, the second or third largest watch company in the world. So now the former Misfit team gets to be a part of that group. And we're now basically the technology team and driving that and making products that especially millennials would like. Multinational company, 59 offices. So it's a big public company now. It's a very different experience, and it's really an honor for us to be a part of such an esteemed group. So that's the quick background on myself and where I'm coming from. So two things I wanted to talk about. This was two things that the folks at the conference thought that you guys might be interested in hearing about. First is around products. How do you make a product that people really want? I was like, wow, that's kind of a high-pressured talk, because I don't know if we actually ever succeeded at Misfit. We built some cool products, and we grew the company quickly. We went from just myself, my wife, and a couple of founders to 240 people after 3 years. But in some ways, I feel like we were lucky because it was a rising tide. People were just getting interested in wearable technology. But I think we did a lot of things wrong, which we're going to talk about this afternoon in my session this afternoon on failure. But I think we learned a few things about making products. So the first one is around thinking about the user first. And in the eternal words of Steve Jobs, it's not the user's job to know what they want. Okay. If focus groups, I tried it in the first two companies, never worked out, never gained any insights that I think just a decent designer wouldn't intuitively know. So we kind of skipped that phase at Misfit. And so I'd like to propose a couple of frameworks that might be useful. I think most of you are familiar with the Lean framework. This works, I think, for some product categories and for some classes of startups. How many entrepreneurs in the room here? Anyone working for, or, oh wow, my kind of people. Software. Okay, any hardware folks? Okay, wow. Okay, this is a good collection. Great. So being lean is one way of doing things. It's not the only. It's like a very popular way, especially if you're doing consumer apps or things where you could iterate quickly. And if you're not familiar with it, it's really about there's really four key principles, or I think of it as four key principles. One, very foundational one, is really about getting user feedback relentlessly. And that could come in the form of just selling the product first and then making it later. It's a very radical shift in thinking. Usually it's like, okay, we're going to engineer something really amazing and then get people excited and they'll build it and they'll come. Terrible. So that's the opposite of what the lean approach specifies. It's about, I don't know if we have sound here.
Here we go, pivot!
There we go. Okay, so
Pivot! 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 Pivot!
okay, enough of that. It's about so shifting your strategy as needed. To accommodate market desires. It's about being able to do it as much as possible, and that is made possible by minimizing the cost of experimentation. So being able to not just work on something really, not putting all your eggs in one basket necessarily, in the sense of if this doesn't work, that's it. No, you should. The idea around lean is being able to make these experiments, do these experiments cheaply, and so that you can do many of them. Thereby, a startup's life being defined not in terms of time and cash, monthly burn rate, but the number of pivots that you can do. Okay, so that's the lean approach. It's not the only approach to doing a startup. The so-called minimal viable product. Some people say you should go for the maximally beautiful product, something that would really capture people's hearts from the beginning and then improving the product over time. So there are number of frameworks, but the idea is to think about which of these approaches to take first on a product, if you're making products, and then running with it. So I like the lean approach. It seems to make a lot of sense for many categories. Second thing that we learned at Misfit over the years is how to make a product that improves with age. We're not making wine or olive oil or whatever, okay, which has its own advantages in that space. We're talking about software, talking about connected hardware, that kind of thing. And we found that, if your interaction with the user is just, here's my thing, please buy it, and then that's it, goodbye. It's not a very interesting relationship. Having a product that can grow with you, a speech recognition system that gets better because it learns from your voice, a digital assistant that gets smarter because it learns your patterns, your life patterns and whatnot. A device that would somehow learn from your everyday habits and get better. A camera that is intelligent enough to kind of learn who's in your who is normally in your house, so that when as it learns more, it gets smarter. So I think this is one of the things that was really useful. A wearable product that has a community that whereby the more friends you have, the more interesting of an experience it is. So that kind of thing. And so we found that that was very important in terms of making a product. And finally, I think one of my favorite things is how to build in a network effect into the products. Again, these are tried and true lessons that I think many of us have learned in building products. It took me a few startups to kind of figure this out, that this was important. And I don't know if we actually did a great job of it at Misfit, but we certainly learned the lesson, because it took us a while to figure out that, having a social feature, having a community is actually really important. And that's what drives engagement. So, imagine a smart camera where it can identify your child that you could put outside. And imagine if your neighbor had the same camera and could also identify your child, you could have them. You could have the tracking happen all the way to where the child's walking all the way to school. Now you would probably go around and evangelize everyone to install such a camera. Just a kind of a rough example of something where a network effect could even happen. Could be something you could build into a hardware product. So those were just three things that I thought I'd leave with you. And the second half of what I wanted to talk about, something else I learned over the last several startups. What I think, so making great products, very important. And I think in Silicon Valley, especially in places like Silicon Valley, I feel like there's almost like this over-obsession for products. Building a company is about building a great product. Well, actually, no, building a great company is about building a great company. And great products are a part of it. So, number one role for entrepreneurs. Any ideas? What do you guys think? Any takers? You said something? Oh, no, they're not. What do you think?
Setting the direction of the company.
Setting the direction of the company. Yes, very important. Any other ideas? Persistent, being persistent, not giving up. Grit is, yes, that's very important. Finding partners so you can leverage your tiny resources to do a lot more than normally. Very important. Thinking out of the box. You got to do things differently, or else you might as well just work for a big company. I get it. Yep. Nothing wrong with working for a big company. It's literally my first job since high school, so it's kind of a new experience. Establishing a cultural, I'm going to talk about that this afternoon. Super important. That is the soul of the company, after all, right?
You need to be fair.
Being fair, you can't show favoritism, except people who are really competent. I favor those people.
I would say inspire people, inspire the community in general.
All right, now we're talking. Okay, so my vision, inspiring people with a common vision and galvanizing people, very important. So I like her answer the best because it's closest to what I think is really important. Sales is really important. I think it is the most important thing. It is very misunderstood. Yes, you have to convince people to buy your stuff, give you money for things that you might not even have made yet. Okay, but remember, you're also trying to convince people to join you. Okay, people who are going to be paid half of what they're going to get, have no job security, but it's going to be really awesome, right? And trying to convince people of that is hard, but it works. I don't know if you're familiar with this picture here. Do you know who this team is? Anyone? Microsoft. That's right, man. There's little Bill Gates and Paul Allen in the corner. But they had to convince people to join them on this crazy adventure. You got to get investors to be excited to invest in something that they absolutely should not be investing in. You know, it is incredibly high risk what we do. Most startups fail, and so how do you get them excited about your vision? Getting partners to work with you when they really should not be working with you because you might not exist in 3 months or 6 months. Okay, it's about getting the media to write about you, even though there's nothing to write about. You're just a dinky little startup. And so those are the challenges that we as entrepreneurs have to face all the time. Trying to convince these different constituents to be galvanized around our common vision. So the sales narrative is much more profound than the stereotypes that are out there. Much more profound than trying to convince people to buy stuff that they don't need. That is not what I'm talking about when I talk about sales. So this scene from Wolf of Wall Street. So those are the two things I wanted to share with you this morning. And if you'll join me this afternoon, we're going to talk about all the epic failures that we had, my partners and I had over the last 3 startups, and all the things that we learned from it. But I'll leave you with 4 things that I learned about sales. So just practical things that learned the hard way from all these failures. First is sales is not just about getting up there and improvising. It's really it's mostly planning. In fact, it's mostly doing your homework, thinking through what is it that your target audience, whether it's a potential candidate or an investor or a partner, really wants. What is it they actually want? Trying to understand that, and then really delivering to that what they want when they want it. Timing is just as important as the what. And then based on that value proposition, telling stories that really resonate. You know, dry PowerPoints with lots of words, not going to work. You know, that's it's going to be around winning over hearts. I'd say winning over hearts first, and then minds later. And I think in 2016, in this current day and age, it's mostly about being able to tell compelling stories. There are a lot of great books on storytelling. One of my favorites is a book, I forgot the name of the author, but it's called Lead with a Story. Lots of templates for generating stories and being able to kind of craft stories that you can use. Once you have the stories, once you understand what people want, once you have a hypothesis for what your customer wants, once you are able to deliver that story, it's really then about focusing on amazing value, so that you don't just have a one-off sale, but continuing relationship and a flow of sales and maybe even referrals. And remember, if you value is not just the delta between how much you made something and how much you're charging it. It's if you can deliver great value, it's going to those 2 price points will be those 2 numbers can be decoupled from each other, and hopefully you never sell below how much it costs you to make something, obviously. And finally, as immortal words of another very wise person, showing up is 80% of life. At Misfit, when I think about some of the biggest deals that we did, some of the our deal with Victoria's Secret, our deal with Swarovski, with Speedo, some of the greatest brands out there, working with a dinky little startup that's 1 year old. Okay, it was really about showing up. A lot of these partners were just ready to work with someone like us, and there were many more that were not ready. That's fine, but you only need 1 or 2, and a few. And so for us, it was about showing up. So do your homework, tell stories that resonate, focus on amazing value, and show up. Of Cristo. This is my WeChat. If you use WeChat, it's you can find me there, but you can also email. Any questions? I know it's early on a Saturday. It's unbelievable that you guys are all here. It's great.
Based on, my name is Ken from Rutgers University, New Jersey.
Cool.
I'm impressed. Based on your last statement about showing up, through your experience, have you identified or feel that you may have a better sense of when you're at these meetings when you realize that they may be more ready than you, or you may not be as ready as them? What you just said in the last sentence is going to make me think about showing up and then being ready, but it's a two-sided coin.
Yeah. Well,
Is there a distinction?
I love and where they are ready and I'm not. You know, in terms of delivering a product is, I can always say no, right? I say, oh, sorry, demand is so high. Let me get back to you in 7 years. You know, but in some ways, you know, because then you can at least see if there's actually demand for what you have. But in terms of being able to tell, I think it becomes fairly obvious. You know, I think one thing is keeping the bar very high for what a yes is. You know, if I say, hey Joyce, I've got a product for you. Would you buy it? Yeah, sure. That's a no. Would you pay $100 for it? Yeah, sure. That's a no. What do you think? Oh my God, that's unbelievable. That's really cool. That's a no. Okay. Wow. Can I give you my credit card right now and buy it? That's a yes. You know, keeping the bar really high. Okay, because it's usually a no, but no's take many, many forms, and I feel like yeses are very clear. Like raising money. There's like a zillion ways investors say no. And in all of my experiences, we've raised, Sridhar and I've raised 5 seed rounds, 3 A's, 3 B's, 3 C rounds across 4 companies. And almost all of every time that we've been able to get interest, we got turns within 12 to 24 hours. You know, and then all of the hundreds of other meetings were, wow, that is really interesting. So, then we never hear back from them.
So hi, I'm Leonidas. So with regard to what you said before about lean management and pivoting and everything,
Yep.
for me it seems like you're trying to make a nice product in your mind, but at the very end, what you're doing is you're like not you per se, but what I'm saying is someone is like capitalizing a hype. Like for example, if back in the days of 1970s someone had a Tesla, no one would ever care because they liked American muscle cars.
Yep.
But now there's a demand and a supply, and therefore what you're doing, again, not you, I mean what someone's doing is just making a product, and by pivoting he's just covering the demand. He's not making something genuine. It might be genuine per se, but what he's doing is again making a viable product, a minimum viable product to cover the demand,
Right.
and therefore not making something genuine, I mean skyrockets or whatever.
Right. So I think that is the other position on where lean isn't appropriate. You know, there's one of my favorite recent books by Peter Thiel, one of our original investors, 0 to 1 is his book. And there he kind of argues against the lean method. And, you know, if you want to make levitating cars and not 140 characters, you want to make rockets that go to Mars, right? You can't make a minimal viable product, you know, like we're 100th way there. Just need to get the other 99%. No, you gotta build for the future, and I agree. So that lean methodology isn't always, but you know, there is an aspect where lean does apply to Martian rockets, and that is to find out, do people actually want this? You know, hey, I've got Martian rockets. Who's in? $99, and then everybody, yep. How about $99,000? And then, you know, and then you can at least test that, right? So there's an aspect where the sales process is a great way to learn about what users want, rather than asking them, what do you want? Like that is, I think that's ridiculous, asking people, what do you want? Because the self-knowledge, self-articulation skill level, not always there with your target audience. Not saying that it isn't there, but, you know. So So who's in the process of starting a company right now? Just out of curiosity. Yeah. Who's looking for funding? Wait, why not more people doing that than starting companies? Like maybe I guess you could be looking for money for things other than startups. Yeah. Any other? Yep.
A follow-up question on the one that was asked before.
Yep.
Do you try to turn no's into yeses, or when you see an answer that's
Well, that's a good question. Do we turn no's into yeses? Like, do I fight for the? So there are certain, in many situations in doing a startup, you never take no for an answer. You just cannot take no for an answer. Trying to negotiate a lower lease costs, or trying to convince a superstar to join you, or that kind of thing. You never take no for an answer because you always get a no. Asking for permission for something, the automatic answer is no, right? So you cannot take a no. Can we host our event at this venue? The answer is always no. Cannot accept that. But when it comes to the sales process, it really is this research. There's a research aspect of it. My view is until you find what we call product market fit, I think no's are a very important input. Because if you don't have product market fit, people are saying no for a reason. That is, they really don't want your product. So you're either selling to the wrong person or you're selling the wrong thing. And so I think it's very important. But that doesn't mean you're accepting no as a defeat. You're saying, okay, I need to make something else, or I need to modify what I'm doing. But I think once you get there, then it's a relentless pursuit of sales. It is important to, at that point, people, their consumers want it. I know the consumers want it, so Best Buy, you better carry this. At that point, I wouldn't take no for an answer. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of a roundabout answer, but yeah, I think it was someone here. Yep.
Wait.
Thank you. Hi. Speaking of product market fit, I'm curious, what did you do in your case to validate the fit with your market?
Oh, good question. So what we did, we sold the product first. So we did an Indiegogo campaign. It's a very popular crowdfunding campaign. And so we actually made a model from a model shop of the original product, the Shine, this product right here. It's way back. And we, I'll show you what it looks like. It looks weird, like you can't even tell what it is, It's like a little metal disc. So we made this little metal disc, shot a video of it, and we put on the Indiegogo. It didn't work. We mocked up some app screens. It was actually just an image that we put on a phone, and then we posted it, and we intentionally did not do any marketing. We just reached out to some press. I basically begged 3 of my friends at various tech publications to write about us. And that was it. And then it took off. The YouTube count went through the roof, and it turns out that people were sick of ugly black plastic bands. They wanted something crafted out of metal that, for once, a woman would wear. And so a lot of people slammed the product for not having a screen, and then a lot of people loved the fact that there was no screen. And so we basically did this crowdfunding thing, and it worked really well. I highly recommend crowdfunding. And it takes a little courage because you're putting yourself out there, and oh man, what if I miss my funding goals? Well, there are worse things in life than missing your funding goals, like not being able to pay rent, that kind of thing. I think we have time for one more question. So, yep.
Hello. During this exciting process, what was your greatest mistake in terms of impact, and what was the change you had to do to adapt to what you learned?
The biggest failure, boy, it's countless. So there's several. In terms of the product, if there were hiring mistakes and marketing positioning mistakes, and then there were product decision mistakes. So Let me just pick one. Oh man, sounds like red alert. So I'll just pick one. I'll pick, while we're on the topic of products, let's talk about products. So we were just hell-bent on not having, on making it really minimalist, like really, really minimalist, okay? So we had a screen and we took out the screen. We had a button, we took out the button. We had plastic, we took out the plastic. We said, that's it, uniform, unibody metal construction. Crazy, you know, like you can't communicate a Bluetooth signal out of a Faraday cage, right? That's it, we're not using Bluetooth, we used ultrasonic. We actually developed our own communication protocol using ultrasonic. And it was amazing, it was an amazing demo. We brought it to Apple, where we launched. We showed the product, and then we turned on airplane mode, and it still synced. And they're like, oh my God, this is magic, you know? And we did the video, it just turned out that it was a really dumb idea, because the data transfer rate was very low with ultrasonic, and a firmware upgrade would have cost, would have taken 22 minutes. So we had to go back to Bluetooth and cut off. And so we lost a lot of time. We were late for the campaign. We got flamed for being late. Got more traffic as a result. You know, being overly obsessed about something, I think helped drive us in a good direction. But I think we didn't pivot fast enough on some of these points where it was just not trustable. At least not in 2012. Thank you so much.